caused the Tulsa Race Massacre in the first place. You referred to this anti-CRT legislation as upholding the Confederacy. You said he and the state were trying to remove the fact that the Tulsa Race Massacre was motivated by race and racism, and you all agreed to call him a white supremacist. So I guess what I'm confused about is how, from his answer, you derived all these conclusions.
Obviously, I don't have all the
bare genocide wheel never happened.
Necessarily recall the video, but I'll speculate everything you've said.
What happened to his voice? Hello?
Would you just repeat to me the last thing he said about immutable characteristics?
I can read you his direct thing if you want me to.
Yeah, just repeat what you had just told me in that setup.
Okay, well, what I told you was that he said, the way I described it was, he said you can teach about historical incidences as long as you don't blame the behavior on immutable characteristics. Okay.
So what do you think he's talking about when he says blame the behavior of the Tulsa massacre?
He's saying that, what I interpreted what he was saying, because the question asked was, how does teaching the Tulsa Race Massacre...
I know that, but I'm saying, like, when he says...
I'm trying to answer the question.
Okay.
Because the person says, how does teaching this incident not run afoul of the CRT or the anti-CRT legislation? And his answer is that he's saying that he would never teach a child that the child is inherently racist because of their skin color.
No, but that's not what he said. What he said was, will you just read the quote?
He said, I would never tell a kid that because of your race, because of the color of your skin or your gender or anything like that, that you are less of a person or are inherently racist. That doesn't mean you don't judge the actions of individuals. You can absolutely do that. Historically, you should. This was right, this was wrong, they did this for this reason. But to say it was inherent in that because of their skin...
Wait, did I delete 5 iron alloys somehow? What the fuck?
You're saying that race defines a person. I reject that. So I would say to you to be judgmental of the issue of the action of the content of the character of the individual, absolutely. But let's not tie it into his skin color and say the skin color determines that.
Okay. So the idea that the Oklahoma massacre was simply a function of some bad individuals, to me, is absurd. It is contrary to historical context. I mean, let's be clear. The Oklahoma massacre was not the only massacre that took place in the post-Reconstruction years. There were dozens. There were political coups. There were assassinations. They were white people taking out black political people and black wealth. And the idea that this was simply a function of individuals, but not a function of an ideology that came out of in the wake of the Civil War is just, I'm sorry, it's ludicrous. And just the idea that this is going to be, you cannot consider the question of race, which I guess is the immutable characteristic that he's referring to, right? That race plays no part in white supremacy is a total denial.
I do bitch Chad.
I mean, and look, let me be clear. Like, I think white supremacy is a practice that we all largely in this society engage in, including black people. And because it's something that has been so ingrained into the society, into the fabric of our society, that it is, it's almost like, it's almost in many respects, it's involuntary. To be sure, there's a lot of white supremacy that is much more voluntary and much more you're aware of for some people. But broadly speaking, we make choices every day that are a function of white supremacy, that are a function of white supremacy. The idea that the Oklahoma race massacres was not a function of the whiteness and the blackness of the people involved, I'm sorry, it's just, in my mind, it's
when are we getting a Fear and Hunger playthrough for content?
I don't know.
Ask your mom.
I don't know. Remember the exact context of the guy. I don't remember the guy whatsoever. And but that view, in my mind, is both a white supremacist view which, again, I believe that white supremacy is something that we can practice unconsciously.
Right.
And I believe that subscribing to that view is certainly what ultimately leads to more egregious acts of racism. And it also is, I think it is completely consistent with the impetus behind the Lost Cause. I think, frankly, the whole assault on CRT is also denial of systemic racism. I mean, it is also, I think, like a fictionalized version of what CRT in fact is. And I would also say that, like, the goal of these laws is, in my mind, twofold. It is, one, to make it so that people who would teach about questions of race to self-censor themselves, because these things are written in such a vague manner, and particularly in the case of like Florida, where you have empowered people, and I think the Oklahoma law is modeled after this. You empower people to sue a school district. They're going to err on the side of not bumping up against that law because it's so costly for them, and it's cheaper for them to avoid anything that is even remotely close to that. I mean, it's the same thing with abortion bans. That's why you have doctors saying, like, I'm not going to perform an abortion on an ectopic pregnancy because I'm not going to lose my license and go to jail. And so that type of ambiguity around the law is not a bug, but rather a feature of that law. And then I would also say that on top of that being the purpose of the law, it is, and I think we're seeing this in Florida, which has been the pioneer in this stuff, that the next step is a beginning to proffer more, I would say, racism denial, like in the form of the attempt to rewrite
the way that some people talk, I can never tell if I'm just getting old and stupid, or people they say so much, and I feel like it can be said so much more succinctly. Am I crazy? Sometimes I feel like when people talk, it's like, I feel like you could have said this 5-minute sentence in like 20 seconds. I don't know, maybe.
Curriculum to say that slavery provided personal benefits for the enslaved. So yeah, I mean, I don't remember the specifics of the video you're talking about, but largely based on his comments, regardless of what he's saying to mitigate that, I think that his understanding of both that law and of the Oklahoma massacre is completely consistent with white supremacy.
I think you misinterpret what he was saying.
I think you misinterpret what he's saying.
Right. Well, I will say, because I think. So my understanding of what he was saying, he didn't say anything that, like, you can't teach that the Tulsa Race Massacre was motivated by racism or animosity towards black people. Because the first sentence he says is, I would never tell a kid that because of your race, because of the color of your skin, that you are less of a person or inherently racist. Now you can disagree with how he defines CRT, but in the anti-CRT bill, it says specifically that you can't teach that someone is inherently racist because of their skin color. And so he's saying that's the element that you shouldn't teach. He's not saying you can't teach that the people involved in the Tulsa Race Massacre were motivated by racism.
Can you put up his full quote? Because I wasn't responding to that part, obviously. I was responding to the second half. You said something like that the events were not a function of some immutable characteristics.
He said, I would never tell the kid that because of your race, because of the color of your skin or your gender or anything like that you were less of a person or inherently racist. That doesn't mean that you don't judge the actions of individuals. You can absolutely do that. Historically, you should. This was right, this was wrong, they did this for this reason. But to say it was inherent, this is where I see it's key. But to say it was inherent in that because of their skin is where I say that is critical race theory.
I will tell you.
I think I understand what the original guy is saying. And I think I see the disagreement. So the guy said, you cannot teach that it sounds like they're talking about the Tulsa race riots. You cannot teach that the Tulsa race riots were done because they were white people and white people do these things. But it doesn't mean that you can't teach that. That doesn't mean you can't mention that that racism was involved, essentially. Hold on one second. Stalk Rage Pope. Tell Destiny he's wrong and my ban is retarded. Jacob links this. Barbellmedicine.com, a basic guide to
I know people
cholesterol.
say things in way too many words because they need to quadruple,
Control
quantify,
F,
/
nuts.
qualify their point to make it make sense.
Replacing a significant portion of animal-derived saturated fats with unsaturated fats from fish like salmon, nuts like walnuts and almonds, avocados, olive, canola oil, or other plant sources results in large decrease in blood cholesterol and decreases risk. Good one.
That had those people who committed who flew the planes that bombed the wealthy neighborhood.
Don't ban the messenger. We do ban. Hello, have you seen 300? I haven't actually seen that movie, but don't they kick the messenger into the hole? Was he just a messenger? I have no idea.
Black wealthy neighborhood in Oklahoma. Had they been black, they would not have done that. I think we can all agree on that, right?
He's not saying that they wouldn't have done it if they were black or if they weren't black. He's saying that they didn't do it because they were white. That's what it sounds like. That's what the original quoted guy is saying.
Sam, I don't think either one of us are disputing that those people were racist as and that we should be able to teach that. But the thing is, though, if people are saying because those people were racist in the past that you are in fact racist, or that any particular race is inherently racist as some sort of like biological determinism, that's the problem.
Well, first off, I don't think CRT in any way whatsoever teach.
Wait, I can't tell if Pisco has just become a jerk or anti-fan. Wait, what is this? They did do it because they were white and racist. Haha. Being white was essential? I can't tell if that's a true statement or if you're just like taking the piss. What a retarded statement. It is not an essential quality of being white to be racist. They might have been racist against black people because they were white, to be racist against black people in that point in U.S. history, you needed to be white, but that doesn't mean that every white person is racist. It's not a necessary condition of being white to be racist. That's what the argument is about right now. That's what these people are talking about.
Which is that because people were racist in the past, they are inherently racist now. The CRT doesn't even come remotely close to teaching anything like that.
Well, kind of does, but
What is this?
Like, I don't think Donald Trump is going to.
I think their whiteness was a necessary condition for the racism. That's what I mean. That's not what's being argued, though. What's being argued is that they were racist because they were white, or that's what the quote implies. Not that being white was a necessary condition, but both a necessary and not even necessary and sufficient. It's the what's the dude, I should take a prop logic class. It's like if A, then B, but he's saying if B, then A. But if A, then B, it doesn't like if they were white, no, I don't even think that would be the logic that would fit here. I don't know why I'm even trying to make an analogy. This is really simple to understand. If you can't understand this, go talk to Rage Pope and he'll help you figure it out. This is really obvious. The guy just because somebody was white in the past didn't make them racist. There were racist white people, but it doesn't mean that all white people are racist or were racist, or that's the only thing that made them racist, which is being white. There's a better...
Actually not critical race theories either. Critical race theories is that there are institutions and functions of society that are set up that are a function of racism, in the sense that there's diminished. So, for example, it is statistically far more likely that your neighborhood, if you are black, will be 10 to 20 degrees hotter in the summer, in the peak of the summer. Now, do you know why that is? If you are black, it would be significantly more likely that your neighborhood is actually hotter.
The question though is
and the reason is because there are less trees that are planted in urban areas. There are less trees planted in neighborhoods where there are black people. That's just a fact. And the reason why that is because there's less political power and less money in those neighborhoods. This is just a fact. And this is a measurable fact.
I think we should stick to the point that we want.
Okay, well,
we should stick to the point of the bill, because I don't dispute any.
I don't dispute anything that you're saying.
Wait.
We could have a protracted conversation. Maybe we would in the future. I'd be interested to have this about what CRT is, because I've actually read way too much about CRT and read too much academic literature on CRT. But instead of debating that, the thing that I want to talk about with this is that you can disagree with Oklahoma or this guy's interpretation of how they define CRT. But
Right.
that would be different than saying, well, they're claiming you can't teach that the Tulsa Race Massacre was motivated by racists, which when I'm looking at his words, he's not saying that. And when I look at the law, it doesn't appear to say anything like that either.
I mean, in the words that you just said to me, that this actions was not a function of an immutable characteristic. That to me says these people did not attack that neighborhood in Oklahoma because the people were black. And these people did not attack and the attackers did not do so.
There's a confusion.
because
There's a
they were
confusion
white.
going on here, Sam. You're talking about the immutable characteristics of the blacks, but I think he's talking about the immutable characteristics of the whites being racist. So if you're saying that the people who attacked have an immutable characteristic of racism, and that's why they attacked, you are also saying that people today who are white have this same immutable characteristic of being racist. That's the problem.
I think that attack would not have happened if those attackers were not white.
So do you think white people have an immutable characteristic of racism?
Within the context of our society?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there is. Well, I don't know that is.
Careful.
I think no. The question isn't whether the racism is immutable. The question is whether the whiteness is immutable.
Well, what is
in the
whiteness?
sense that? Well, in the sense that I mean, I'm using the way that this guy is talking about it, because I don't believe that this guy thinks that race is a social construct. I mean, I'm talking about the way that he is using in this context. He is talking about race. When he says immutable characteristic is race, and I would say that yes, I think that it is inherent in our society. And like I say, I think both black and white people share in some function of white supremacy. But I think the whiteness of those people was the primary motivating factor in their attacking.
What do you mean
of
by
black
whiteness?
welfare.
How are you defining whiteness?
In the context of people in
Yeah,
1921?
what their behavior is being motivated by whiteness.
Well, no, not in the. No, I think the key thing is, to be clear, you don't believe. I'm assuming you don't believe that, not like whiteness, like what does whiteness mean? But you don't believe that just because someone is white, that means that they're inherently racist, right?
No, I don't think. Well, I mean, look, I happen to think no, not inherently. I mean, I'm not sure what you mean by necessarily inherently.
It's an immutable characteristic that you're born with, in the same way that you're born with skin color.
Well, you're saying no, that racism is an immutable characteristic.
Right.
And I'm not saying that.
Okay,
I know.
but-
That's what I'm trying to clear up.
I'm not saying that racism is immutable.
Right.
I mean-
That's what the guy.
That's what the
who's
guy is
responding to
saying
this
on the
that's what he's
quote.
talking about.
Yeah.
He's saying
Okay,
that you
say-
can't teach that
read-
racism
read-
is immutable.
read the quote back to me again, please.
I would never tell a kid that because of your race, because
No, I
of
know
the
that
color
part,
of your
but go.
skin.
Oh
wait,
my
you're University
God.
of Oklahoma.
Hello? Steven?
Hello?
Hey!
Who is this?
I'm a new viewer.
Oh, what? Okay, give me like 20 seconds. Hold on. People are sending me voice notes now. Chill. 1 second.
Kind of rude. Dick.
What do you?
Alright.
What do you want?
I think Corantos has an immutable characteristic of being a dog shit co-host.
Okay, well, you say that, but in 20